So this was a second in 2010. Again, stunning colors, great composition for me, very different, not so frontal and not so flat. Long exposures again. Really fortunate this was a very dim, dark day, so I was able to control both the highlights and the shadows, which is tough in any kind of photographic. This was, I call it the Jewish house because there was a lot of this architecture, Star of David sort of encrypted in the architecture. Because they couldn't practice their religion, Jews, when this was built in the 30s, they became Christians, but when nobody was looking, they would, Friday nights were, a little different than everybody else. And the guy who built it encrypted these symbols in the architecture. So it wasn't a temple, but it was definitely the Star of David. So color, again, I'm pulled back. Just like in the black and white early days, I'm pulling back and shooting more and more architecture. I thought I should record some of those while I was. This one's downstairs. It was great to see a big print of this. I had never seen it before you got it. So hopefully I'm telling stories with every one of these pictures, and you're sort of going through who lives there, and always wanted to photograph 4 neighbors intersecting. But the architecture is stunning. A music school. This is all 2010. So I made 25 photos from that trip. I make 4 or 5 in a trip, I am so excited. And this one was just like, when I got back, the music school I found. And the Deco stairwell I found, which is right near the Hotel National that I stayed in. With just a cool building. I thought, well, I wonder what it looks like inside, and I found that on the 2nd floor. It's like Christmas, you get all these presents, and you open, and some are really great, and some you can't wait to take back. These 2 I didn't want to take back. That was one of the best conditioned. That's in the Capitol building. My little twist was the wet floor. Again, I'm just telling stories. That was the car I drove around in with my driver. This is great. I didn't discover this print. It was a 6 foot, 8 foot print. And I looked at it, kept getting closer. And this kid is in the front seat, is staring right at me. I would have never seen that in a million years. It's just the beauty of big prints is you just discover so much. And so for the last 4 years, I've been thinking, I'm not going back. I did it. I'm done. It's over. And I think it's over. I like some of the photographs I made. A lot of the interiors, the grand ones are gone. The place is getting renovated. I kind of feel like I did it. And there are just a few more here that I made. The last photographs I think I'll make in Cuba. Photograph now with a digital camera, which is very different shooting. Same idea. The pictures aren't any different, except for the pictures are better. More information, sharper, more ability to put everything in focus from here to all the way in the back, which I couldn't do before in an analog world. And I'm glad I went back. I mean, I'm glad that it was kind of finished for me. And I do love some of these photographs. So I photographed Fidel again. Why not? It was the goodbye tour. I photographed this, which I thought was interesting, because in 1999, she had a head. And look at the wall behind her. See what happens in 15 years. Remember this guy? Had a little bit wider lens, and I love this. I like this. I like them both. I don't know which I like the most. But found some interiors. Again, not so grand. The grand ones are gone. I mean, they're just not there. Not as much hope for me. Color turned down a little bit. Beautiful fresco on the back wall falling out, just gorgeous. I mean, I love some of these pictures, don't get me wrong. I knew it was over. I knew it was when I was there, and I knew when I came back that I had finished my pile. And the way it happened was every year I said I went back to Fidel's. So 99, 2000, 2002, 2010, 2014. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd be glad to take any questions if you have any.
You started a new pile.
I have started a new pile. It's video. Been doing some video, some kind of environmental things that are very sort of dark, and they're kind of still pictures that move. No, if you're going into their home, they want some money. They didn't in the beginning. They were completely shocked that I would even do that. But the word got out. I mean, I wasn't the only one that's down there photographing. So yeah, they want and deserve money. It's so hard. I thought it was going to be so easy. I thought, oh my God, this will be great. You know, you see somebody with a 5D and they're shooting and it's right there, and they go back and plug it in and it's right there. So it's a 240 megabyte file, which means I can do a 6 by 8 foot print that's even sharper and more acuity and color, less color distortion, etc. But the learning curve on it is just tremendous. Because the tolerance film is this thick compared to 1 micron, you know, metaphorically. So you've got a lot of slop in there when you take a picture. You have to be right on the money all the way across that thing. So it's really demanding. The good news is they're the best prints I've ever seen. Well, it was that sudden. I mean, it really was. I was just nobody was doing color then. I mean, that's the other thing. I lived in 1972 to 82 before Meyerowitz sort of came out with his Cape Cod things. Nobody was really showing color. And the fact that it was so much better in color than it was in black and white. The fact that the emotion of color, it was sort of like when something's dead, there's no color in it. And so I felt like black and white in a sense was not dead, but it transformed itself from life. And I was trying to transform it in a different way using color. And I did that by being kind of really not picking a whole lot of colors. It wasn't Technicolor. usually one or two or three colors. So I was also looking at painters a lot then, abstract expression, clay, Paul Clay, people like Jasper Johns and their surfaces. So I was looking at those colors, and then I was seeing it everywhere. Seeing it everywhere when I was, I do a lot of rubbernecking driving, sort of driving around looking at stuff, and that's how I find a lot of things I photograph.
How did you come back vertical line distortion? Did you elevate yourself or just?
No. The view camera goes like this. It's like if you have a regular camera, your 35 millimeter, it doesn't move. The view camera goes like this. So if you're shooting a building and you have lines, instead of going like this and getting the distortion, you point it at it and just lift the front, and the whole image rises and everything stays square. That's why I got the 4x5. That and the fact that there were really big negatives, so I could print really big. I was in Detroit. It's interesting. Sometimes I feel when it's too far gone and there's not that hope, that it's too late for me. Not that somebody else might feel differently. And my God, there's a couple of French photographers and Andrew Moore who went to Detroit and made great photographs. But for me, when I drove through there and looked at it, it just felt like it was over. It was like just gone. It was too far gone to come back. There wasn't the life in it that I found in the interiors in Cuba. And maybe that's because I photographed Cuba and I didn't feel that way, because certainly these other photographers found stuff that I would have. So it was another mistake. I moved to, that one in Mercedes with the little sculpture, big head and a bust in the middle? I moved it an inch. I feel so much better to be able to say that. Been living with that all these years. Yes? They're not protected. The ones downstairs, those are the prints. Yeah, they're digital prints, but I mean, they're protected. If you mean by light, or do you mean by just conditions? Yeah. There's not much you can do except for put a piece of glass in front, and then it's very difficult to see. No, it's true. It's a big part of the picture. It's it's why it's what it is. And those buildings would be beautiful sort of no matter what. If they were fixed up, they would be beautiful. But I agree, they're definitely part of the pictures. They're part of the portrait. They're part of what's going on down there. They're a real presence, our embargo. At the same time, it's the Cubans, well, there's no at the same time. It's a shame. It's a crime.
So maybe we should stop suppressing them and allow them to feel more richer.
Well, I agree, but Obama tried. I mean, I don't get much in the politics of things, but Obama tried to lift the embargo pretty quickly into his administration, from what I gather and what I've read. And the demands that were made back from the Cubans were so outrageous, because the Cubans are in power in part because they can use us as the bad guy. And it's a tricky dance down there, because there's the Cuban government, and then there's the people, and then there's us. And they're all different players and all playing different parts. But I do agree with you. That's part of the sadness of those photographs, is the fact of the embargo. And I think one of the reasons why we, as Americans, respond to these photographs the way we respond to them. I mean, I don't know if it changes anything, but it's certainly a good idea to see it. Anyway, thank you very, very much.